Welcome to the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I'm Bobby Grenier, your trusted guide to navigating the world of real estate in Maine. Get ready to debunk mortgage myths, unravel real estate mysteries, and learn tips to avoid costly mistakes. Whether you're an industry pro, an overwhelmed buyer, confused seller, or simply curious about life in Maine, this is the podcast for you. Hey there, welcome back to the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Bobby, and this is a podcast where we talk about all things Maine real estate. I want to welcome my new listener, and as always, thank my OG listener. Thanks for pushing play, guys. If you've been listening for a while, you might know that when I first started this podcast, I had one big concern. Well, I had lots of concerns, but I had one really big concern, and that is, what if I run out of things to talk about? Funny enough, inspiration always seems to find me, especially through conversations and also social media posts from my fellow real estate professionals. That's exactly how today's episode came to be. A recent post by my guest, Chelsea Hodgson, really struck a chord with me, and I knew we had to dive into this topic. Chelsea is a real estate agent with Better Homes and Gardens, the Masiello Group, and she's going into her 5th year as a licensed agent. What's unique about her journey is that she started her career right in the middle of COVID. This was a time when networking and in-person connections were nearly impossible. That experience really highlighted the importance of building a strong network, not just for business growth, but for personal and professional development as well. Today, we're talking all about networking in real estate. Why it's crucial to create a solid network of industry partners, mentors, and service professionals like movers, stagers, and electricians. Chelsea's going to share her insights on how networking has opened doors for her in ways she never expected, and how building these relationships can lead to unexpected opportunities and long-term success. So whether you're a new agent trying to find your footing, or a seasoned professional looking to expand your reach, this episode is packed with valuable takeaways. So pour your coffee, find your comfy spot, and let's get into it. Good morning, Chelsea.
Good morning, Bobby.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Big fan.
Thank you so much for that. You have mentioned that to me a few times when we've been out and about, and you have no idea how much that means to me, that encouragement, that support. So I appreciate that for sure. I always get a lot of inspiration when I'm on social media from the different things people post about, and it'll be like, oh, that's actually a really interesting point or a really interesting topic. And that's actually what brought me to invite you onto the podcast today, because today we are talking about networking. Before we jump into that, can you give our listener just a little background as to how you ended up in real estate and how this was the career path for you?
Sure. So I do want to make one point. I was believe it or not, I was a shy child. It wasn't always easy for me to make friends. So if you had told my 5-year-old self 30 years later that I would be on a podcast about networking, I would not even believe it. So this is like super exciting for me because it's just something I'm passionate about, and I'm trying to grow as a person. And so I really started out in customer service. That's kind of where I've gotten my base for real estate. I did kind of veer off from that a little bit, and I went into medical, like a medical secretary. From there, I honestly tried being a stay-at-home mom, and I thought that I was an introvert, but after being a stay-at-home mom, I found myself like talking to the mailman and being like, hey, what's going on today? What are you doing? And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not as introverted, as I think. So I ended up going back to retail. And then after COVID made me, I think a lot of people did this, think about, what do I want to do moving forward? My kids were getting older. So I kind of just researched. I wanted to do something where I guess I could be my own type of boss. You know what I mean? Not the traditional 9 to 5. I wanted something a little different, a little exciting. So I kind of decided I was going to get my real estate license.
That's really awesome and really interesting, because it's the same thing with me. I always say that I'm an either an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. I don't really know which comes first, probably the day that you ask me. And if you had told me 5 years ago, not just my 5-year-old self, that I'd be doing this, I would never have believed you, but I'm really happy that I have, and I'm really happy that you have. So today we're talking about networking, which is a really important aspect of the real estate industry. So how did you sort of get into that networking part of real estate?
So I got my license basically during COVID. So I was licensed in 2021. I'm going into my fifth year now. And so when I first started, there wasn't like, there weren't even really people at the office. I don't even think that the greater Bangor area of realtors, I don't even think they were having meetings in person. You have your first couple of transactions, and then you realize that this is really a team effort, and there's a lot of different resources that you need. So it was kind of a shock to me to realize how much I really needed to get to know people and put myself out there, and get the knowledge from, industry partners. I've kind of made it a goal, as uncomfortable as it is, to put myself out there and get to know people. And like you said, not just on a professional, but also as a person on a personal level as well. And I know that I have some other realtors in my office were like, "Hey, how about you come to a Greater Bangor area of realtors lunch?" It's kind of where it started, and I really enjoyed it. And I also have some wonderful ladies. I look up to them, and they have known how to push me out of my comfort zone, to join Greater Bangor area of realtors, and also YPN, Young Professional Network.
That's a really interesting point that you started during COVID, because that was a very different world in so many ways. Definitely not the norm business wise, and the way we do business, definitely not the norm when it comes to networking and real estate community. So I wonder, do you find that maybe there are some agents that came into it that are maybe missing out, that they didn't push themselves, like as you are, to join the board of realtors, whatever local board of realtors they have, or Young Professional Network, YPN, some of the other networking groups that there are, BNI, business networking groups that there are. So do you think there are a lot of people that are like, hey, I started in COVID, I was on my own, I like being on my own?
Yes, I think if you have the opportunity, even to just come to a meeting and sit down, and I think it's really sometimes, and I sometimes you can get isolated, honestly, from working at home all the time, and just getting out and talking to, other agents about what's going on and what they're seeing. I love to get to know people and sharing, funny stories. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in real estate.
I think that a lot of times that's missed out on, because as you know, you got your license and you knew, really what the regulations were and what you needed to do and the basics, but you still need that mentorship, that support, that education that you can only get through networking, even if it's networking within your agency.
That is such a good point. I always say, like, you go to real estate school, I guess, or classes, and you basically learn how to not break the law, and like about contracts and things like that. You don't have any in-field experience. And I can tell you this from just joining a team. I did my first year of real estate on my own, and I did have, I'll call her my mentor, because I was calling her all the time, 9 o'clock at night. I knew she was going to answer the phone, asking her, what have you seen this? What should I do? What's the best course of action? And then I joined a team, and Joan Osler has been in real estate for 40 years. And just, I can tell you, the first 6 months I was on that team, I learned more about real estate than I did the first year on my own. Just sitting back and even watching her transactions, and how just the wealth of knowledge she is, along with Sally, who's been in real estate for 10 years, just tapped into so much knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of like to be I don't know, I find myself in this mom role all the time, sort of like this real estate mom. And I always encourage young agents to call me on the title end of things. And I think that hopefully it's getting better, but there sort of seemed to be this, I should know this, like it's almost embarrassment. I should know this. Why would you know? Why would you know about title issues? Why would you know those things? So that brings us into why it's so important to build those networks and have those resources.
I can't tell you how many times I have texted, like sometimes if I look at a deed and I'm like, this is like, I don't understand what this is saying. I can text someone and be like, hey, can you explain this to me so that I can explain it correctly to my client?
That's so important, and it's so good on you for asking questions because again, and I really have a hard time in my life and in business even asking for help. So it puts you sort of in that vulnerable position that we don't always like to be in, but it's so necessary, especially when you are dealing with people's homes, their real estate, their investment. I mean, it's just so important that we don't wing it.
Right. And get the information to them correctly the first time. I think it's worse sometimes to try to backpedal and say, oops, I got this wrong. I mean, not saying that we don't sometimes, but to have it correct first. And I've always been the type of person to tell my clients, I may not have all the answers like offhand, but I have so many resources that I can reach out to someone and say, hey, I might not know that answer right now, but let me check with someone who is an expertise in that area.
That's a wonderful point because I think that having the vulnerability to say, I don't know, but I can find out. I still do that. I've been in this business. It'll be 22 years in May doing closings, working for Trilogy. And I still in a closing will sometimes say, ask me any questions. If I don't know the answer, I can get the answer. And nobody has ever had a problem with that. So those of you that feel like you need to know it all, back up and reset. You do not, and you need to rely on your industry partners. I feel like in some of the categories I want to talk to you about networking, there are a few different categories, especially in regards to how a real estate agent networks. The first one we've talked a little bit about is your industry partners. Can you talk about how you've made some connections and decided who to bring into your network for industry partners, lenders, title appraisers, inspectors, that sort of thing?
So as an agent, I realized early on that there'll be people in the industry that will reach out and say, hey, do you want to go for coffee? I'm the type of person, if an opportunity presents itself, I like to just try it out and take it up. And if I go to coffee with someone, and there's been plenty of them that I've gone to coffee with, and we really hit it off, I like their vibe, they'll present me with all kinds of information. And, I like to keep in contact with them, follow up. And honestly, some people that I do have on my list are I am a real estate agent, but I'm also a homeowner myself. So things that go wrong with my home, sometimes I even reach out to my friends. I have mom friends and say, hey, do you guys have any recommendations? And they'll come to my house, and it just happened, honestly, with my boiler. And he responded very quickly. He was at my house. He was personable. And I said, hey, can I, I'm a real estate agent. Can I add you to my, my list of vendors if someone else is in this same position?
Let me know if you feel this way. I feel like it raises the level of professionalism in all branches, be it a real estate agent or lending or, title. Competition is a good thing. So I think that it's really good. And if you are referring, I always kind of talk about the real estate food chain. So, the real estate agents refer to lenders, lenders refer to title companies, then we bring in the appraiser and the home inspector. But the real estate agent really is a lot of where it starts with those referrals. And you do not want to refer your clients to people that are not going to give them the level of service that you give them and that you expect your industry partners to give them.
Absolutely. I think whether you want it to or not, sometimes it will reflect back on your business practices. I think also I'm going to touch on the point that it's also good to have a list of different personalities as well. Every client is a little different. You know what I'm saying? Or
absolutely, yeah. You just feel like the the personality and the nature of that particular client maybe would not jive with this particular lender, although they do a great job. I do that sort of thing. I have people ask me all the time to refer them for real estate agents. And I think, like my son, for example, bought a house a year or so ago, so a year in September. And I know so many real estate agents. I know so many wonderful real estate agents. Am I going to match him up with, a lady in her 50s, which would be amazing and have all kinds of experience? Or am I going to match him up with a younger, newer male agent that I thought that they really would connect, that he'd feel open to ask him questions? And again, I have no preference on either of those agents. I've worked with, again, so many amazing agents over the years, but that's what you have to look at. And that's also just part of thinking about your client. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, you're like I always like to think of it as you're kind of a matchmaker. Like, you're matching people with houses, you're matching them with, or trying, to match them with lenders and there's other, like, I mean, certain things you don't have control over, like appraisers but usually you do have to help guide them. A lot of times they're looking for lenders, they're looking for title companies, things that they have control over and get to choose.
Well, sometimes it's also just the practicality of this lender does not offer this particular program. This person's a veteran. I want them to be able to take advantage of the veterans program. I know this other lender does offer it. So sometimes it's just the practicality. And although you have those relationships to keep them on the professional level, to say, I like you, you do a great job, you're not the best fit for my client for this particular circumstance. And nobody can take that personally. I guess they can take it personally, but they shouldn't take it personally. Besides G-Bar and YPN, what are you finding some of the other ways are to network and meet industry professionals?
So being involved in your community is a big one. I am currently working on that myself. I'm honestly, I really want to join the Hamden Historical Society. Love history and preserving history, and I've lived there, almost my whole life. And then I do a lot of volunteering at the school. My kids are older now, but when they were younger, I did a lot of volunteering at the school to get to know the teachers and community members.
I think that's perfect, though. I mean, that's who you are. Real estate is a really interesting industry in that you do bring so much of yourself and your personality and your values and all your history and all of that to what you do. And by the way, we just want to mention you're doing a great job on your social media. You're doing a really nice balance of letting people know who you are and also keeping it professional. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But that's true. So if you decided, you wanted to network by joining, I don't know what, a bowling league, and you're not a bowler, it's not authentic to who you are. So I think that's a great point, that people need to think beyond just the realtor events and getting into the community.
And I also find too, I've joined a book club. I love to read. I've joined a book club. I mean, I'm really going to get along with people who have the same interests as me.
Well, that's a good point too, because we do a lot of events, a lot of education events, which I love to do. That's actually something that I've always done a little bit of through Trilogy, but I'm doing more of going into real estate offices. And I like to teach. And again, I kind of go that mom real estate aspect of it, that I want to set people up to succeed and I like to teach. And so that's one aspect of networking, which kind of goes hand in hand, obviously, with marketing. But we also have a lot of fun together too.
I have to speak on that for you. I went to the networking event that Trilogy and Baldacci put on with the flowers, creating our own arrangements. I absolutely love, like, I grow a garden, so I love flowers. So I was super excited when you guys put that on. Two things came out of that, honestly. I actually met a realtor who works in an area that I have actually clients looking in that area. It's a little bit of a distance away. And we got to talking, but I said, I have this family that's looking to be in that area. She has messaged me a bunch of times with, coming soon listings or just keeping me up to date on the market. And that was, awesome. That connection with her, we really hit it off. So it's really, helpful for my clients.
Yeah, thank you. That's really wonderful to hear. That was a fun event. You never really know what's going to catch, what people are really going to resonate with them and want to do. And that event, people were just, we called it our Galentine's event. We did have one guy there. Shout out to Mark Lloyd. Thank you for representing.
That
Um,
was super great.
but it was a super, super fun event that people really just came to. And it wasn't, I mean, I always try to sort of work the room and talk with everybody. There's a lot of other staff members there, but it's not just about, me marketing with you. It's the connections you make with the other people there. Even if it's a real estate agent in a different market or even in your own market, but a different agency, we all work so closely together that it ups that level of knowing each other, professionalism. When you care about the people you work with, I definitely think it makes you do a better job.
And the other thing, this is neither here nor there, but the other thing I did, I made a bouquet for my daughter for her birthday. And I was making like the little grid work. And like, I was like, oh, I know how to do this now. I learned it. So I got two things out of that.
That's so funny because my husband got me flowers and for Valentine's Day. And I always say, don't spend a lot of money. I love flowers, but please don't spend a lot of money. So he got me a beautiful Sam's Club bouquet. And, after when I had a minute, I sat down, I took it all apart, I put it all together. And I also do have to do another shout out to Chelsea Crane, who ran that class for us of Live Simple, Bloom Wild. She's my niece. And I think that everybody kind of went away knowing something that had nothing to do with real estate.
Well, we got a little bit of both, and that's why I love networking. You get a little bit of both. You get a little education on something not related to real estate, but you also get to connect with your peers. And in the future, if I do work with this agent that I met at this networking event, I kind of know her now. So I think sometimes when you haven't really met these agents that you're working with, you don't know what their personality is. Things can come up, like we text a lot. Things can come up. You can't read the tone of a text, So when you get to know them and you feel more comfortable with them, I think that all around helps the transaction.
I agree. And we do so many, we're doing this by Zoom, but so many Zoom meetings, it's a step above a text or an email. But that in-person thing, I'm old school and there's no substitute for it. And I love putting those events on. I'm always like super nervous right before, like who's going to show up? How is this going to go over? We've done with Trilogy, we've done many over the years. So it is good to have fun together. We do through G-Bar, we do the Christmas parties and kind of do that fundraising aspect, which is really, really nice too. Have you had the opportunity to get into any of the fundraising events?
I am the co-chair of YPN, Young Professionals Network, along with Meredith Tepper. Shout out to Meredith. And we are actually, right now, we're working on putting together the bowling event for this spring. Fundraiser. And so we're in the early stages of deciding who we're going to raise the funds for. Last year was really successful. Also working on trying to get a group of realtors together for Hike for the Homeless. And that's open to the public.
That's always a challenge, is to let the public know that those events are open to them, because it does obviously increase the fundraising, but those groups do so much. And you mentioned Hike for the Homeless. I do that about every year, and we try to put together, depending on availability, a Trilogy team. And I do feel like, and I'm going to call realtors out a little bit. I do feel like there has been the last few years a lack of realtor participation. So I am cheering you on to get a huge team together. Talking about community, you talked a little bit about how you volunteer in your children's school in your community. How important is it in networking to find out all of the things that your clients need to know about schools, about churches, about, just when trash pickup is? That really, I don't know if everyone considers that part of networking. I do, because again, networking is building the network of people and information to share with your clients.
Absolutely. If you have someone, especially, I've had a couple clients from out of state, and they're looking to move to this area. And this is the area I grew up in. And things are always changing. I can't even tell you just Hamden how much it's developed, just in the time that I've lived there, knowing things about the community. Sometimes, honestly, for closing gifts, if you're moving to the area, I love to go around to small businesses and get gift cards because, a thriving community is good for us all. I am a business owner myself, so I do like to try to support small businesses.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, as a closer being in the closing room, sort of from the outside looking in when I'm watching the interaction with clients and real estate agents, that real estate agent that is like, yes, trash pickup is on Thursday around 10 o'clock. There's a great rec program that, oh, your daughter's into basketball, that, to play basketball. Oh, there's a gymnastics school. All of those things that right from the beginning, the client can know more about their community. Some people aren't joiners, some people, are retired, but that leaves such a wonderful impression on your clients as to opposed to, I mean, I don't know, I think there's a town website, and yeah, that's just not the same as you showing your knowledge in the community, showing your care for your clients beyond just, I'm going to sell you this house.
And they're gonna, you're introducing them to the community too. You're gonna, I mean, if it's me, you're probably gonna see me you're gonna run into me at the grocery store. I'm gonna see even my client, I see them at school, school events, basketball games. Like, you're really kind of to me, I feel like I'm kind of the welcoming committee. I'm excited to see you around. And if you need help, you need me to show you where the grocery store is, or best coffee in town, or my favorite pizza place.
You're sort of the ambassador for your community and even the state, and there's no substitute for that. I did an episode, well, I've done quite a few episodes when it comes to really marketing yourself and increasing your value proposition. But one that comes to mind is an episode I did with Jason Fish under all of these new NAR regulations, and how real estate can be a little bit of a saturated industry as far as real estate agents, and how agents really need to step their game up. And one point he brought up was that networking piece, that knowledge of the community. And then the other aspect, I always call it, I know a guy. So that when somebody says, Chelsea, I need a mover, or even in the process of getting the house ready, I'd like to have somebody come in, consult on some staging. I need somebody to pump my septic. If you instantly can say, I know a guy or a gal, but I know somebody that can do this, that is trusted, that I know that I have a relationship with them already. How important have you found that to be?
Oh, that's so important. Your clients look to you for that stuff. They look to you. Like you said, I need a mover. Well, here's some movers that I've worked with, and they work really well. Again, going back to, I like to refer to people that I actually have used myself, so that I can say, hey, they were, really great. See how they treat me as a customer or a client. And like I said before, it reflects back on you too. If they have the same professionalism and, dedication to their craft, everybody wins.
In my opinion, it increases your professionalism and how people view you as a professional real estate agent when you have this network of electricians, painters. And another layer of that is that even if you don't, you have a network of real estate agents that do. So it's just really this great spider web that grows and grows.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times, even within our office, we're bouncing ideas. Who are you guys using for this? Who are you using for this? Vetting them as well. Reading their customer reviews, what other agents say.
I don't have to tell you how stressful a real estate transaction can sometimes usually be, yeah, just in the aspect that it's a transition. And when they hire you to represent them, again, it's not just showing them some houses and unlocking a door. It's not just sticking that for sale sign on the lawn and, hoping people call. It's beyond that. Can you think of any stories where you kind of saved the day with your network of professionals?
Oh, absolutely. And I really got a great testimonial from her as well. She was selling her home. She had had tenants in there that had maybe not taken the best care of it. So I had to, we had to hire someone to come in and clean it. We had to hire painters to come in and just get it all ready for listing. And she was so happy. We had to hire lawn care, even just, lawn care, come in and make everything, look good and list ready. And she wrote a wonderful testimonial about, me helping her find everything she needed. We had a successful sale, just getting all of those stressors out of the way, ready to list, and it was a smooth transaction.
As opposed to you giving her a laundry list of things that need to do and hey, call me
And
when you have
stepping
this
away.
done. Yeah, then we'll get this listed. That's the difference, Chelsea. That's the difference between the good and the successful agents and then the agents that might do a little business, but they're not going to go anywhere. And I'm sorry to be so blunt about that, but that is just
No,
the truth.
to touch on that too, she was actually not, she didn't even live in town. So I was there to let everybody in and, make sure that things got done and send her pictures. And like she wasn't local. She could travel, but she was hours away. So, she wasn't familiar with everyone in the area or the companies. So she was really looking to me for those needs.
Did
So
that surprise you when you get into the real estate industry? Did it surprise you that you were going to be called upon to do all of those things that are really, when you look at the book, beyond the scope of what you should be expected to do? I mean, it's the reality of it and wonderful that you do it, but did that surprise you?
yes, I'm always surprised sometimes that the things that we get into and, we have to do. I will tell you from trial and error, I have had to, at final walkthroughs, I'll say, hey, whatever is in this house, this is probably what they're expecting to leave. So if there is anything in here at this walkthrough that you don't want, you got to let me know because I can tell you my first couple transactions, I was putting stuff in my car and my husband's like, what is this? And I was like, it's a whole bunch of stuff that was left.
That happened to my son when he bought his house. There wasn't a lot there, but they left some like bunk beds, and he's a 24-year-old single guy, no kids. He really had no use for bunk beds. And I got to shout out Mike Ellis had his truck there and he loaded it all in the back and said, it's gone, I'll take care of it. How important is agent to agent collaboration to you?
It is so important to me. It's like my bread and butter. Less stress, more success. Like I touched on before, getting to know the other agents as, people. We're in the same industry, and we kind of honestly, sometimes I think we kind of set the tone for the transaction. If I come in all combative, my buyers or sellers might think that this is a combative transaction, and it's not. We have a common goal. I really like to. It's not a competition anymore. Once we each have clients, it's not a competition. It's a team. It's a collaboration, and I think that's huge.
It's an end goal. It's an end goal. And
Yeah.
I always tell people, you need to build that dream team. And that is not just you and your real estate agent against the world. You
Yes.
bring everybody in. And the buyer is on the seller's team, believe it or not. The seller is on the buyer's team because at the end of the day, you are, again, reaching that closing table and that end goal that everybody, I'm assuming, because they're where they're at, wanted to reach. So I definitely appreciate that. And I think that it does not matter which agency you work for, which title company you work for. We all are in this sort of sandbox playing together, and it works out so much better to play nicely because when you don't, the client loses.
Exactly, exactly. And I think touching back on networking, that's where I get to meet. I've met so many other agents outside of my own, agency, which I love our camaraderie at our agency. I love the things we do, but I also, a lot of times you're not necessarily working with someone in your agency. You're working with someone outside of your agency, and getting to know them is huge. And it also helps going into your transaction if you know the type of agent that you're dealing with, what their personality is. I almost feel like you have a little bit of You know how to approach them, what works best, kind of the way they represent their clients. And a lot of times too, it's just if you guys can be respectful and, courteous to each other, we can come up with solutions. Two heads are better than one sometimes. Come up with solutions that will make the buyer and the seller mutually happy.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And that rapport you have with that other agent, when there are bumps in the road, and there are almost always bumps in the road, that
Always.
really can make or break the deal and what the experience is. Again, for your client, you really need to be client oriented. You're working for them, and get any type of ego or, like you said, combative attitude, that there's no place for it. If you could talk to a younger agent, an older agent, it doesn't matter. If you had a key takeaway and you could talk to them and they were like, nah, I just kind of do my own thing. There's Yellow Pages, there's Google. People can find their own contractors, their own professionals. What's your advice to them?
First, I think you're somewhat doing a disservice to your clients. You do this every day, so many transactions. Most people don't do this on a daily basis. So they are coming to you for these professionals that you work with. And like I said, I don't pretend to know everything. You can't know everything. So it's, giving your clients the information. If you come across something in a showing and you're like, that looks funny, and you can maybe talk to an inspector. And then I also want to touch on the wealth of knowledge of seasoned agents. I mean, they have seen market crashes, they have seen great times. I mean, right now, I have been working in a seller's market. Eventually, I'm sure it's going to be a buyer's market, and I'll have to pick their brains about how to work that market as well. And they've seen all this. So I think you're doing yourself a disservice too if you're not networking with other agents, mentors, learning all you can from them.
I think I found, you can let me know your thoughts on this, but we talked in the very beginning, we started this out sort of with our confession of being introverts. There is a way, and I think you and I are actually have a similar approach. There is a way to network and to get out there and not have to do that cringy, ridiculous small talk thing. And that is through service, through getting to these events and working at them and having a purpose at them. So you're not wandering around trying to walk up to groups of people and introduce yourself, because that is like my nightmare. And
Yeah.
what I have found, if I'm there at a G-Bar event and I'm working, I'm volunteering, that is so much more comfortable for me. And everybody will have their different way of, some people love it. They just love to go and meet people and have no problem walking up to a group of 3 or 4 strangers and introducing themselves. But that's terrifying for me. So I found the way that works for me.
100%. I can't agree with you more. I'm the same way. And I think that a lot of that has to do with why I joined YPN and Greater Bangor Area of Realtors. Kind of gives me a purpose to be there. I feel so much more comfortable, knowing people. And once you're comfortable with the people around you, you kind of open up more. And that's the other thing about networking too, I've noticed. It's given me more confidence. I do feel a little more comfortable walking up to people I don't know and introducing myself.
It's momentum. It really is momentum, because you start like, okay, I did that. I didn't die. I did Bobby's podcast and I didn't pass out. I didn't, everything worked out. And you gain that little bit of confidence. And, I'm in my mid 50s, and it really does not matter if you're younger, if you're older, we all have those challenges and insecurities. And once you can slowly chip away at them and find again what works for you. If you just say, nope, that's not my thing, I'm not a joiner, you are going to miss out. And it's not even just, your personal growth and your professional growth. It's your paycheck. This is how you're choosing to make your living. And if you really want to go for it and grow your business, then I think that networking is key.
Yes, absolutely agree. And I think people, a lot of times you think of networking in only a business way, but I mean, at its core, most of us network all the time. We don't even realize. Like I said, you go to a book club, you're somewhat networking. I mean, you're getting to know people. I've gotten clients from baby showers.
Well, no, and that's such an awesome point that we do it every day. And when we put this big, networking label on it, then all of a sudden it comes with all of this pressure that we're not prepared for. But we do, and sometimes it is just an introduction, or for you to know that you've mentioned a few times that you've enjoyed the podcast. So you're in the back of my mind, and when I see a great topic, I'm like, oh. She enjoys the podcast. She supports me. She is really interested in this topic. So it just creates opportunities, I think.
Yeah, there we did. There we went. We networked right there. You gave me an opportunity. I supported you. This is networking at its core.
We didn't shout out the agency that you work for. Can you do that for me, Chelsea?
Better Homes and Gardens, the Masiello Group. I am part of the Osler Balancia team.
Two great ladies, as you said earlier, very knowledgeable.
Oh, just a wealth of information.
We have some OGs in this industry, and Joan Osler is an OG, capital O, capital G.
She is, and she is just a kind, hardworking individual, and her and Sally took me right under their wing and just have shown me the ropes, and I look up to them so much.
I think that's great. I myself love it when younger people come into this industry. It sometimes you look at it, not sometimes, it's a fact. It's sort of an aging industry, and to get younger people in and get excited, and you teach us stuff every day.
I have learned that. I have had older agents in our office come to me sometimes, and they're like, I'm having a really hard time with this pricing. Like, it's hard for me to. And this is the only market that I have known. So, and technology is always changing. I mean, I'm honestly still learning things from my daughter, who is 17, and so sometimes new ideas are always, being flown at us, TikTok and all of that. So.
Oh, yes. I'm definitely the cliche. I'm getting better, but, with my kids, it's like, can you just show me how I lost my, shortcut to this app, and my son will kind of sigh and always help me. But yeah, and I just think that's great. Welcoming younger people into our networking groups. I really enjoy it. As I said earlier, I like educating. I like teaching. So I think that is the best of both worlds if we can learn from each other.
These agents are helping mold the agents coming. They have so much knowledge, and they're helping us continue that level of service, really shaping the next generation of.
And it's my observation, I really feel this way in thinking about it, that this group of agents that are coming in, and it's, sometimes they're fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, maybe in their 30s, but the professionalism, I'm very impressed with it. It really, the work ethic and the professionalism of these young agents, it's amazing. I'm very, very impressed with it. I'm very, very pleased with it. And I think that, when some of us older girls and gentlemen retire and leave it, that this industry is going to be in really great hands.
I hope so. And, when I get older and age out of it, I want to have a helping hand with the younger generation coming in, and I hope I'm still networking like crazy.
I bet you will be. I think that we're all going to be watching you and some of the other of your colleagues your age and seeing what you do. And I'm excited to see where it all goes.
Yeah, I appreciate the support.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. You've got kids going in different directions. So I'm always so appreciative for the support that people give for the podcast and for them taking the time to come on and talk with me and hopefully share some great information for all of our real estate friends out there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This has been the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast with Bobby Grenier. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion and will share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to leave a review and follow the podcast so you don't miss new episodes. The content of this podcast is for informational purposes and not intended as legal advice or representation by myself or any of the guests on the podcast. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep it real.